Hey guys, I wanted to do a quick video on the arcade cabinet that I built in my recent game room tour. I took just a quick look at this custom arcade cabinet that I made, and so I wanted to kind of go through it, show you guys exactly kind of how it works, what went into it, just kind of talk about it. Obviously I made the outer cabinet out of a kind of like almost like a cabinet grade plywood. You know, it's like a plywood with a veneer on top of it. And then once I constructed the cabinet, I went ahead and I pretty much just used spray paint. I tried to find spray paint that closely matched the Nintendo colors. That was pretty easy. I found all of this at Home Depot. So I found like a reddish color spraying paint that matches the Nintendo logo. I also found a gray color spray paint that matches kind of the old Nintendo colors. And then I basically just taped it off. That kind of took a while. That was a little bit tedious, but not too bad. You'll see right up here in the front, this is a 3D printed Nintendo logo that a friend of mine made. He does some 3D printing work, and so that's pretty much just fastened on the front of it with some like strong adhesive. Then down here, it's kind of a little bit hard to see there, but this is going to be the Dell monitor that I was talking about. I just took an old Dell computer monitor and basically just set it up so that it would work with this cabinet, and I'll show you kind of the behind the scenes and the guts a little bit later. And then for controlling it, I looked at a lot of different options because I wasn't sure how I wanted to actually run the gaming system. I didn't know if I wanted to use like a Raspberry Pi and then buy, you know, like a built-in, controller. I ended up coming up with this. I think this was kind of the best, thing that I could do as far as making it easy and keeping it kind of inexpensive. So I just took an NES Advantage controller, and this works perfectly because, I mean, this is made by Nintendo, so you know it's quality. It controls really well. The only downside is for some games like Mario's and things like that, you know, an arcade stick's not really ideal. But, you know, for just playing a lot of shooters and things like that, it's actually a great, thing to use for that purpose. And then I just kind of trimmed out the screen there. I thought about putting like a layer of kind of plexiglass over top of it like you would have on a normal arcade. I may go back and do that. Like I said, this is kind of like, I just wanted to see if I could do it. And so this is really more or less a prototype. I'll probably maybe down the line try and come back and do like a more refined version of it. So this is kind of like a really rough version. So I did want to show you the back. What I did was I made a hinge door right here. So this actually is a door that, kind of closes down on the whole thing. And so this is on a set of hinges, and I just have it kind of screwed up for now. But here's the back of it. And as you can see, it's, like I said, this is a prototype. It's really rough looking. It's all made out of lumber that I pretty much just had laying around. And so a lot of time and thought went into how I was going to power this thing, how I was going to run it, how I was going to get, the games that I wanted on it. I considered putting an actual Nintendo in there. There's not a lot of space in here, but I considered a lot of different ways to do this. So what I kind of decided on was, here's the Dell monitor. This is kind of fixed to this 1x6 back here. And then down here, to power the games, I decided to go with a Retron, original Retron. That was the cheapest, way that I could think of to get these games to play, and it was probably $16, I believe, on eBay for this console. So it was really inexpensive to do. And then that game cartridge right there, what I decided to do with that was, in order to get a large selection of games, I decided to go with a 151 cart, like you see here. So this is I bought this on AliExpress. I think it was less than $15, and you'll see I actually removed the board. So I opened up the case here. I removed the board mostly because there's just not enough room under there to fit the cartridge. So I decided to remove the board. So that's the board kind of jammed right into the Retron console there. And you'll notice that I did remove the battery. I'll talk about, why I did that here in a bit. But I did end up removing the battery. And the reason I went with a Retron console was because it already has the proper Nintendo controller ports for the NES Advantage. So I didn't have to, buy any type of USB adapters to get that to work. I was able to just plug it right into it, and it worked fine. Now, over here this is how I'm actually doing the sound for it. I've got a little USB speaker, and this is plugged in with a 3.5 millimeter jack cable, and so that goes right into the, actually that's an adapter. That goes into the RCA, and the RCA goes into the back of the system there. And then I've got, to power it, I've got a little USB cable, and that actually plugs into the into the computer monitor here. So I was able to run all of this stuff right into the computer monitor. You see for the video, I was able to just go with this particular monitor had a yellow RCA in there, so I was able to just run that right into it. As far as the power, what I decided to do was I decided to have a power bar back here that I could plug everything into. So everything gets plugged into this power bar. And then what I did is, you can see that blue box right there. I actually connected the power bar right here inside of this blue box. If I come around to the other side, I rigged up this switch. So this switch actually either enables or disables power to that power bar. And what that does is that gives me a way to basically toggle the power for the system on and off. So it shuts down everything all at once, and then it powers on everything all at once. And that was also the way that I figured out how to get the system to turn off and turn on whenever I needed it to. So when you hit that switch, it powers down everything that's connected to that power bar. And then when you hit it again, it powers on everything that's connected to that power bar. Now the only thing, and what I do is I actually have the power turned on all the time on this console there. So the only thing that I've kind of, I still need to figure out is, for some odd reason, when you hit that switch to, turn it off and then turn it back on again, it picks up with the last save, it picks up with the last state that you were in. So it doesn't ever officially turn off the console. And I'm not quite sure why that is. I need to do a little bit more research. I thought it was the battery on the cartridge saving the state and basically saving that in storage and allowing you to pick back up where you left off. But as you can see, I removed the battery, and that's not it. So it's something else. I don't know. I probably will end up having to hook up a reset switch from here in the console and basically hooking it up somewhere outside of the console or outside of the cabinet here, maybe putting it in here along with the NES stick. So that's kind of how I did it. Let's go ahead and turn it on real quick and see if we can get this thing to power up. Alright, so it's a little loud there. Let me go ahead, I'm going to disable the sound for now. That's one other thing. I need to figure out a better system for the speakers, because I also need to figure out a volume control setup. It's, the sound is nice and loud, which is what you want, but, you may want to be able to adjust the sound on it, and unfortunately, with the setup that I have, you can't do that. So, but what I do like here is with the 151 cart, it basically boots you to the game setup screen. So you can go through and, find the, the particular game that you want. And once you select it, you're able to boot right into it. So I'll just choose a game here. And as you can see, it boots right into it. Alright, and then you can just control it just like normal with your arcade stick here. So, I can go through. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Like I said, if I ever did another one, there are some things that I do differently. Probably one thing I would do differently is I would probably use a smaller screen. Not smaller in size generally, but maybe a different aspect ratio screen. I'd probably find something that fits the aspect ratio of the Nintendo a little better. As you can see, I've got some black bars right up here on both sides of the screen. I'd like to get rid of those, so I'd probably use something with a smaller aspect ratio. That would even make it cheaper, because that would probably be an older monitor. You could find one on Craigslist somebody basically is giving away. The other thing that I do is I'd probably rip out the, the guts of the NES Advantage and basically flush mount the control stick and the buttons to kind of like the top of the bar there. I mean, this can come out still. It doesn't come out easily, but because it's kind of embedded back in there. But the NES stick comes out, which is nice because then you could pull it out and sit on your lap if you really wanted to. That's probably one thing I would do a little bit differently. The other thing that I would do differently is probably figure out a better system for the guts of the inside of this thing. As you can see, everything's just kind of like thrown in there and fastened. I wasn't too concerned with how it looked on the inside of this as much as I was making it functional. And it definitely is functional with a few kind of, oddities that I'm still trying to figure out. But it definitely is functional. It is pretty cool to just sit there and play, an arcade cabinet. Actually, all things considered, it was not that expensive. It was a good bit of time, my own time putting it together, but that's kind of one of those labor of love things. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed figuring out how I was going to put it all together. But the actual cost of it is not that bad. I mean, it was an LCD screen that I had laying around that I wasn't using anyway. It was an old USB speaker, Bluetooth speaker, with a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack connection that was laying around that wasn't getting used. So really the only things that I had to buy was the blue box and the switch over there, which was just a couple dollars. The Retron system, which was less than $15. And then the cartridge, the 115-1 cartridge from AliExpress, that was probably also less than $15. So really the majority of the expense was in the actual wood that I purchased for the actual cabinet, and you can get a whole sheet of that for $30 at a Home Depot. So the rest of the wood that was used in it, I just had extra spare scraps laying around from other projects that I worked on. So all said and done, I think this thing was probably put together for well under $60, which is pretty good when you consider, what you get out of it. Like I said, the time that goes into it, your time is money, but it was something that I enjoyed doing, so I had no problem with it. But that is my arcade cabinet. Like I said, I thought it was just a cool project to do. It's a neat addition to the game room, and it definitely is fun playing some of these older arcade-style games on an arcade cabinet instead of just playing it on a regular console. So that was just a quick look at my new arcade cabinet that I built for my game room. Thanks for watching, guys.